I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. Dr. Tererai Trent is on the show today. She's Oprah Winfrey's all-time favorite interview, and her story is nothing short of amazing. By age 18, Tererai was a mother of 4, and she had no education. She wrote down her dreams on a piece of paper, and she buried it into the ground so it could grow. Today, Tererai lives in America. She has her Ph.D., and she's built 6 schools for girls in Zimbabwe, where she's from. In this episode, we learn about 2 types of hunger: the little hunger, which is what you seek for instant gratification, and the great hunger, which is what gives your life purpose. Tererai walks us through how to identify our great hunger. In her new book, The Awakened Woman, Tererai has a chapter called Reclaiming Your Voice. I ask her about her thoughts on the paradigm shift we're witnessing with women breaking their silence. She has a unique point of view on how women can choose to be accountable for contributing toward the solution versus being pegged as a victim. Before we get started, I want to tell you about my partners at Design Pickle. You know when you're in a pickle because you need a design, but you don't have the time or maybe even the skill to do it yourself. Many of us have been there. Design Pickle has been a lifesaver for me. Here's how they're set up. You pay a flat rate monthly fee of $370, and you're given a dedicated designer for all of your needs. You heard that right. Unlimited graphic designs, unlimited requests, and the first 14 days are risk-free. You get a full refund if you cancel in the first 2 weeks. Why Not Now listeners like yourself get 30% off their first month, which means you only pay $259 for your first month at Design Pickle. You can go to designpickle.com/whynotnow to redeem the offer. For me, the process has been painless and ego-free. In fact, many of the posts you're seeing on my social media channels were created by my buddies at Design Pickle, specifically Jacob at Design Pickle. That's what's cool, is that you get a dedicated designer. I'm on a first-name basis with my designer. A mentor once said to me, just because you can doesn't always mean you should. Do what you're uniquely qualified to do. Design Pickle helps me do just that. So your first month is only $259. Go to designpickle.com/whynotnow to redeem the offer. Dr. Tererai Trent, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's been incredible researching your story, and let's just dive right in. Can you tell me about a time when you had to ask yourself, why not now?
There were many, many times in my life when I asked myself, why not now? But I think one moment that I can think of was when I decided to write down my dreams for an education and bury those dreams so I could see them grow and grow. At that moment, I had realized that here I was with no high school education, poor, battered woman, expecting my fifth child, number 5, with nothing. And I also realized that I was coming from this long line of generations of women who had been married very young before they could define their own dreams. I reflected on my great grandmother that I grew up learning about, how she became the number 5 wife to my great grandpa. And she was young, and my own grandmother became number 6 to my grandpa. And without any education, and then my mother, and then I'm looking at myself going back to the time I turned 18. I was a mother of 4. One child died as an infant, and I had no education. So in that moment, why not now? I met this amazing woman from America. She came to the village. Her name is Jolak, and she asked me one fundamental question: what are your hopes? What are your dreams? No one had asked me that question. But what she said in the next sentence was, when I told her my dreams for an education, she said something so, gosh, it just settled in my soul when she said, your dreams are achievable. And I am thinking, how can she say that? Here I am, I have no high school education, and I'm expecting my 50th child. I live in an abusive relationship, and I had just told her my dreams were to go to America, to have an undergraduate, to have a master's, and to have a PhD. And she turns around and she says, it is achievable. And she used the word tinogona in my language, which means it is achievable. And I was surprised that someone can just say that and look into my eyes and see something that I'm not seeing myself. So I ran to my mother and I told my mother that I met this stranger who made me believe in my dreams. And my mother turned around and said, Tererai, if you believe in what this woman has said to you, and you work hard and you achieve your dreams, not only are you defining who you are as a woman, but you are also defining every life that comes out of your womb and generations to come. So for me, both my mother and myself, we were speaking to my soul, let me say, to ask, why not now? So I ended up writing my dreams on a piece of paper and buried those dreams.
And that's, you literally buried them too. I think that moment of taking action and digging down into the dirt. And you had a few, why not now moments, and just to kind of give context, in your village, girls really didn't have hopes, right? They were forbidden to go to school and only boys could, but you had been secretly doing your brother's homework and had this desire for education, it seems, for some time. But to the day when you literally wrote down your dreams, which were to get move to America, right? Get your bachelor's, your master's, and your PhD. What did that day look like? Do you remember the context of that day? Was that the same day that this woman from the U.S. spoke with you, or was it after that?
No, it was after, when I went to visit my mother.
After your mother, okay.
Yeah, when I went to visit my mother, it was one of the ordinary days that I'll always call ordinary but extraordinary to me, because it was a shift that I had to recognize and take and literally dig the dirt and bury my dreams. I had 4 dreams initially. as you said, to have my bachelor's, to have my master's, my Ph.D., and to come to America. And when I read the dreams back to my mother said, your dreams will have greater meaning when they are tied to the betterment of your community. And I had no idea what my mother was saying at the time. And I looked at my mother. In that moment, my mother was silent. And I looked at him and she responded, your dreams will have greater meaning when they are tied to the betterment of your community. I would end up writing my fifth dream and I said, when I'm done, I'm going to come back and improve the lives of women and girls in my community so they won't have to go through what I had gone through. I didn't want the young girls to marry young before they achieve their own dreams. So I buried my dreams, and I buried those dreams not to bury and forget them, but it was symbolic. When a child is born in my culture, they snip out the child's umbilical cord or the birth cord, and they tie the birth cord into one of the mother's old dresses. They just cut a small piece, and from that piece, they bury the contents of that deep down into the ground with the belief that when this child grows, wherever the child go, whatever happens in the child's life, the umbilical cord will always remind them of their birthplace. So my mother said, write down your dreams and bury them the same way we bury the umbilical cord. No matter what happens in your life, wherever you go, no matter the abuse in your own life, the buried dreams will always remind you of their importance, that they needed to be achieved. And when I reflect on that burying of my dreams, it's almost planting my dreams in a fertile ground so they would grow and grow. In many ways, my mother was preparing my subconscious, priming my subconscious mind to be successful, priming it for success, because she, my mother, and I recognized that here I was, overwhelmed with challenges, having many babies that I love so much, but living in an abusive relationship, stranded in many ways, not knowing what to do. But the fundamental question of why not now was important for my mother. And it was also important for me, because when I visualized my great-grandmother and my grandmother and my mother, I always visualized them born in a relay, a race that they never defined. And they ran into this race holding this stick that I call the baton of poverty, the baton of early marriage, and the baton of illiteracy. My great-grandmother runs with that baton. She runs so fast. She gives it to my grandmother. My grandmother takes that baton of poverty, early marriage, and oppression, because they were born during a colonial system that denied them any rights. And she runs with that baton. She hands it over to my mother. My mother grabs that baton of illiteracy, the baton of early marriage, abuse, oppression. She runs and she hands over that baton to me. But something happened. That's when Jolak, the woman who came to my village, met with me and had this discussion, a profound moment before I could hand over that ugly baton to my own girls. My children were still very young. So when Jolak said, your dreams are achievable, and when my mother said, not only will you define who you are as a woman, you are going to define every life that came out of your womb and generations to come. Those two pieces together helped me to really think about why not now? And I buried my dreams to see them grow, to create the fertile platform that I needed to thrive on, to break the vicious cycle of poverty, oppression, and silencing of women in my own family and community.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with Tererai. We tackle the most taboo topics on the Why Not Now show. Oftentimes, you're hearing guests share things they've never shared before. In the spirit of things we don't typically talk about, you should know that the Why Not Now show is supported by Poo-Pourri. Yep, the original before you go toilet spray. It's magic. My friends at Poo-Pourri have literally taken the smell out of you know what. This pure blend of essential oils stops bathroom odor before it begins. Visit poopourri.com, and Why Not Now listeners get 20% off with code Why Not Now. That's all one word. Also, you can now get Poo-Pourri at Target. It's amazing that Jorlock, if I'm saying that correctly, how a complete stranger shared this with you, and how we never know the words that are going to end up resonating and empowering us the most. So that's really powerful, just knowing that this person kind of just brushed into your life. And then the fact that you went on to study agriculture and plants, and the alignment with the fact that you literally buried this, piece of paper in a tin can with your dreams written on it. Have you thought about that much? Do you think there was some sort of subconscious in terms of the direction you went with your education?
Of course.
Yeah.
I live rituals. I breathe rituals. When I buried my dreams under the rock, deep into the soil, as I said, it was a symbol that my ancestors and my people use to bury the umbilical cord. We came from the earth. We go back to the earth. We worship Mother Earth because it is part and parcel of the universe, of who we are. We eat from the earth. We dress from the earth. So the earth and what it represents, it's incredible in the way I look at our lives. So when I came to the United States of America, I knew agriculture is who I am, and I wanted to be that, because it's not a profession for me, it's part of my culture.
And that education really has liberated you, right? It's all so interrelated. It's quite fascinating. So let's talk about Oprah for one moment, because we can't not mention the fact that she has said that her interview with you has been her favorite of all time. She had her show for 25 years. And she said that she considers you the greatest manifester of dreams that she's ever met. Pretty incredible. How did that experience change your life in meeting Oprah, and then what came after with building your school eventually in Zimbabwe?
When I talk about priming my subconscious for success, I think the piece that has really resonated with me, it is that fifth dream of giving back to my community. The dream that my mother said, your dreams will have greater meaning when they are tied to the betterment of your community. because when I showed her the paper with only my 4 dreams, and she nudged me to write that, and I had no idea how on earth was I going to achieve that dream. So when I graduated with my Ph.D., I was at a loss. I was happy one moment, the next moment I'm not happy, because I knew my 50th dream still lay somewhere back home in the ground, throbbing its life and wanting to be achieved. So I designed the T-shirts with Tinogona, it is achievable, and say I'm going to sell these T-shirts. And I only sold 20 T-shirts, and mostly to my friends, my American friends, and I was devastated. That's when I got a phone call, the most memorable call of my life, from the Oprah Winfrey Show. And what Oprah did to donate, when she donated the $1.5 million towards the 50th dream, which I call the sacred dream, was incredible. I find myself in disbelief that, did it happen? But I can only see the results. Yes, it did. What Oprah did, she gave platform not only to me, but she gave platform to the importance of education, platform to the awakening of women, platform to say women and girls should not be silenced because of lack of education. That's what she has done. And with that 1.5 million, today we have managed to build 11 schools with more than 6,000 girls and boys going through the education system. Girls who would probably not have an opportunity to have an education, and today they are thriving. She provided us with a library, a community library. We have computers, we have electricity. We live in rural areas where we have no running water, no electricity. And now we have one of the schools that is holding almost 1,900 kids and has become one of the largest schools in the district and maybe in the whole country, because of what Oprah did and because of believing in that sacred dream. And it makes me realize, when my mother talked about adding that 50th dream, in many ways she was saying it's not only about our personal dreams in life, it's not only about our financial dreams, neither is it about our personal education, the degrees and the diplomas that we find ourselves posting in our offices and in our homes, but it is about how those education and those personal goals and financial goals are connected to the greater good. That's what's going to make us successful in this life.
Wow. And congratulations with the growth of the schools. And what you just said really made me think about your point in the book when you talk about great hunger and how one of the most powerful practices of finding your great hunger is to ask yourself the simple question, what breaks my heart? If for those people who are maybe listening to the show right now and they have a dream and they're ready to take action and turn that dreaming into doing, but maybe feel like they don't have the time or the money, the resources, the skills, the courage, what do you suggest they do first? What's their first step?
So I always ask to identify the hunger that consumes you, the passion, the desire. And there are 2 kinds of hungers in our personal lives. There is the little hunger. The little hunger is all about immediate gratification. I want this and I want it now. But the great hunger, the greatest of all hungers, is hunger for a meaningful life. Ultimately, human beings, and especially women, we become bitter when we lead a life without meaning, a life without substance in service. So, how do we then get to that great hunger? How do I find my own great hunger? Your listeners might be asking, and I say, as I write in the book, ask yourself, what breaks my heart?
So, what breaks your heart in terms of? I'm going to get a little bit literal here just to make sure the interpretation of giving people as much guidance as they can. Are there any tips in terms of where to start with that, in terms of maybe social issues, or any guidance there?
So the question is, you when you ask what breaks my heart, so what in this world makes your heart ache? And it is usually in those moments in your life. It could be social, economic, environmental. It is in those moments of brokenness, the moments of vulnerability, that you begin to feel deep down in yourself a stirring and an awakening to what is really breaking your heart. And that awakening is also, in many ways, giving you specifics of, yeah, this is it. This is it. In my own life, I had to find my own dreams through understanding what was breaking my heart. And in every day of my life, when I ask the question, why not now? It is driven by a yearning in my heart. So I encourage your listeners and all my friends, I encourage them to sit down in a quiet place. Find a pen and a pencil. Sit in a quiet place and ask yourself, reflect on what you are going through in your own life. What is breaking my heart right now? You breathe in, you breathe out, you think about it, and you begin to write things that are painful. And in the book, I talk about the soul wounds, the things that affect you at soul level. You write down what breaks your heart. And in a moment, you'll be able to find answers to that question.
And it seems that, from what I gather, physiologically, if we pay close attention to when our heart is being broken, whether it's even throughout our day or we see something, maybe it's in the media, maybe it's a conversation with a friend about something. We talk a little bit about body intelligence on the show, and it's a topic that keeps surfacing, but paying attention to those physiological responses that, and you have a chapter in your book, Validate Your Body's Knowing. I think that goes hand in hand with what breaks your heart, and being in tune with that scientific response too.
Yeah, because your body knows. It's all within us. But we have the power to sit still and find it deep within our hearts, and it will begin to rise. We have unique gifts within us that are longing to be expressed. And at times, as they get expressed, we find our hunger, our great hunger, because that great hunger, it keeps on nudging at us, breaking our heart, asking us to face these questions that are so important to us. Because if we don't respond to these questions, we become overwhelmed, we become depressed, because there's something that is trying to rise within us. I call that the body knowing, the intelligence of our body telling us it's time to rise, because we can't stifle our gifts, we can't stifle our dreams. We have them to let them out.
I've heard you say, kind of quote yourself when you were younger and wanting to go to school. And clearly your heart was broken. And you said, I just wanted to sit at a desk, raise my hand, and say something. And in the book, you have a chapter about reclaiming your voice. Now, we're living through the middle of a paradigm shift right now with women who have been silenced for a long time, especially in America over the last month or so. They're speaking up. And there's also a Me Too groundswell. What are your thoughts on this movement that we're witnessing?
This is quite remarkable, and I love it because, as I write in my book, I talk about the silencing of women. The silencing of one woman is our silencing, all of us as women. The awakening of women is also the healing of the world. We have silencing not only, as you say, in third world countries, because many would think women, they live an oppressed life, they are silenced in Africa, but we have silencing in America. The media has shown us how silencing is not only happening to the celebrities in Hollywood, it's also happening to ordinary women. And you can imagine some of these women, they have lived with these soul wounds that I call soul wounds, because that's what happens when we are silenced. We bottle things within us. We become ashamed. There is shame associated with sexual assault. And yet no woman is asking to be sexually harassed or assaulted. And now you can imagine 20 years, 10 years, they live with it in silence and never say it. Oh, I truly appreciate those who were brave enough to come out, because in that moment, they created a platform for all of us to awaken, for all of us to unsilence that which the society has normalized. And now there's a movement. Oh, and I wish if more women could start owning their voice, because when we do that, we create new pathways for ourselves. You know, in Africa, there is this saying, until the female lioness becomes the historian of her story, only the tale of the hunt will glorify the hunter. Meaning, if we don't tell our stories, someone else will tell our stories. If we don't awaken from our own unsilencing, someone else is benefiting from our silence.
It's amazing how quickly, too, this is happening, and it's in a very good way. You know, the power of social media and technology to accelerate the rate in which the reclaiming of voices can be done and distributed.
Yeah. And I have friends who friends and fans, they write me, they say, this has been a healing for me, because I thought I was alone and I didn't know how to say these things. I was ashamed and I felt I'll be blamed for it. And now I can begin to see my healing. So owning our voices, telling our stories, it heals not only you, the storyteller, but it also heals others in the nation.
And thank you for that, because it's a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk with you a little bit about next. And that is, I've heard you say that, your story isn't about you. It's about what can come from your story. And I hope that people who are listening really understood and kind of absorbed what you just said, because sometimes we hear people say, I don't want this to be about me. I don't want to share my story or sound like I'm being the victim or XYZ. And for the life that you've lived and this journey you've been on, one of the very most powerful reasons I think you've been through this is so you can share your story. And it's meant to be shared. But what would you say to people who maybe are resistant to sharing their story because they'll feel like the spotlight is too much on them or just resistant and scared?
One thing that I think is when we share our stories, we are releasing something within us and bring healing. When we say an untold story is oppressive because you dream about it, you think about it all the time. But when you release it, it's out there. But let me also say that I don't encourage anyone to be reckless and just say their story out there without being prepared for the emotional journey that they have to go through. That's why I'm talking about in this book, make sure that you have the support from your sisters. Make sure that you have others who are with you on this journey if you want to share your story. And tell it in your own words. At times, it might not take you to say the whole thing, but as you get confidence in your story, say it. Give yourself time to look at the story, reflect on it. How do you want to tell your story? How do you want to share your story? And also, I say, is your story that you want to share, is it about you being a victim or it's about you being part of the solution, part of the healer?
I love that. I mean, it's a bit of an accountability question too of wanting to be a part of the solution.
Exactly. You're not just telling because you want people to sympathize with you. In every speaking that I go to, I speak, I have a signature speech that I give. It's probably about a minute. I always say, many of you, meaning the audience, you have listened to my story. Some have watched it on Oprah Winfrey show, and some have Googled me on the internet and come to the conclusion, oh, poor Tererai, she must be a victim. But let me tell you this. No, I am not a victim. I am part of the solution. And here is how I have come to define who I am. I am a dreamer, the master and mistress of my own destiny. I refuse to let the past define who I am. I refuse to let the current challenges in my pathway become the narrative that define my future. I defied the rules of my culture. I refuse to keep silent about societal expectations that marginalize women and girls to be submissive at the expense of their dignity. And I'll never be silent. And I say that the last part, it's about accountability. It's about being part of the solution. So when I tell my story, I'm not a victim, and I don't want to be a victim. I'm part of the solution.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's going to help a lot of people and really reframe the why and the outcome too. And wow. And we have time for one last question. What advice would you give your younger self?
My goodness, my life, I don't live in regrets. I don't. It's what it is. I live in the future. I'm probably more energized and inspired by the future than living in regrets. Because if I were to go back to the time when I was 14 years and give myself advice, I find myself with no words because it was just overwhelming. But what I know, when I was at that age, I made mental images of the life that I wanted to have and achieve. And I am living that life now.
Incredible. The visualization, it's been a powerful tool for you, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I believe that what's written down, it becomes ingrained in our thoughts. And what is ingrained in our thoughts becomes a powerful mental image that can allow you, even in your moments of vulnerability, in your moments of misery or brokenness, it allows you to step into a future and live there. Whether others may call it fantasy, I don't care. But I want to see myself living in that moment and feel myself with the energy of knowing, yes, I can do it. And I have seen it and I've done it. And I am living proof that making those connections with our minds is very important. And I can give you one more example of that. In 2014, I was invited by Oprah Winfrey to meet her in New York for the Women in the World conference. She jokingly said, "Oh, Tererai, what's now? What's up now? What's next in your life? You now have schools, things are going well." And, we were happy and we just joked here and there. And I said to Oprah, "Oprah, would you mind to do a foreword to my book?" And she looked at me, she said, "Tererai, I don't do forewords." And I knew that, gosh, I think I have overstepped my bounds. But what I did next was I opened my small bag in that moment of feeling, oh gosh, why would I ask for that? This woman has done so much for me. And I took a stick, a yellow pad, and I wrote down, "Hey Tererai, this is Oprah Winfrey. I'm calling you. I read your manuscript. I love it. I'm going to do the foreword." And I folded that note and I buried it. And I realized Oprah does not do forewords. In fact, she has only done about 2. And many told me that she had been approached by, very important people asking for a foreword, and she doesn't do it. And but I just had to make those mental images of seeing Oprah calling me, saying she is going to write it, and I would keep on thinking about it. Well, someone in Schuster asked me, "Do you think Oprah can do something around your book? A forward or..." And even in that moment, they said, "But we know she doesn't do forwards. We have asked her before, but maybe she might. We don't know." And somebody reached out and they said, "No, she doesn't." Well, 6 weeks before the book was to be published, I was in Zimbabwe. 2:30 a.m. in the morning, the phone rings, and I woke up and I'm thinking, gosh, who is this? So I just grabbed the phone. "Hello," and the voice says, "Hello, Tererai. This is Oprah Winfrey. I know it's late there, but I thought I'd give it a try." Oh, girl, I read the manuscript. My goodness, what a powerful writing. The baton, the great hunger, the invisible ladder. This is the book that I have been waiting for. This book is needed by women. I could not believe it.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
3 days in a row, I could not sleep. I thought, my goodness, did I hear Oprah or I am dreaming? I had to go and look for that note and read it for me to believe it had happened.
I cannot believe this story. It's so amazing and encouraging. You know how many people right now are listening, are writing down their dreams probably and headed out to bury them. It's immediately after she said no, you wrote it down. And
I wrote it down. There are no answers. There are no responses in this world. A no may be a delay.
Not right now. That's what I like to believe too. I actually asked Oprah's team if she wanted to be on the podcast, and I didn't get a no. I just got a not right now. She's busy filming or doing this, so I'm going to keep going, but I think I need to write it down and bury it. So now we know.
And remember, when I talk about the little hunger, it's all about now. But it took me 20 years from the day I buried my dreams to the day I walked that podium to receive my Ph.D. 20 years. I never gave up. It also took me 8 years from the day I met Joe Luck to the day I achieved my high school diploma. 8 years. So I am not about immediate success. I can go the long haul because I know it is achievable.
Wow. I can't thank you enough for your time and sharing your important story, which has led to important work, powerful work. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Amy. Thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?